I look at the coaching staff is for Ohio State. I think Ryan Day is a good football coach. I know the Michigan issue is the Michigan issue. I think he's a good football coach. I think Chip Kelly's a good football coach. Do you expect them to come up with some? They've played each other. These two teams know each other. Do you expect them to
Yeah.
come up with some adjustments based on what they saw in that first game, or is it, hey, we just need to do what we do well?
I think it's a little bit of both of those things. And Ryan Day and Dan Lanning have both hinted at the fact that these teams are very different than the last time they played against each other against Oregon. Jordan Birch didn't play when they played Ohio State. He will play in this game. Ohio State's offensive line looked drastically different against Oregon than it's going to look into this game. They've on like variation number 7 of this offensive line after a series of injuries now. So it starts there. So there's some schematic things that have to change after that. But then also you've learned some things, some guys have developed. Plus the approach has to be different for Ohio State. I think what we saw against Tennessee is what's required to win these games, not what we saw against Michigan where they tried to run the ball and it didn't necessarily work. That's not going to work in this game. So yes, there are things I think from that October 12th game that both of those teams can go, okay, that worked in that game, that'll probably work today. But I think there's also just as the season progresses, you've seen some changes in personnel in terms of who's just available for both of these teams that might change some things. So I don't expect it to look the exact same way, but I do expect it to look the exact same way, if you understand what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a competitive back and forth game, but I don't think they're going to have the same exact game plans that we saw 2 months ago.
Ohio State's front seven, to me, is playing very differently than they did against
Yeah.
Oregon. They really have kind of taken a step to where you thought they might be based on the personnel. Do you get that same vibe that they're playing as well as we've seen them all season?
I do. And some of that is schematically, Jim Knowles has changed some things up since that loss to Oregon. They've essentially spent the last few 4, 5, 6, 7 games since that game revamping some things to see what we saw against Tennessee. But also, guys are just playing better. This is lazy analysis. But sometimes I think we try to overthink things that are very simple and in our face. Why did Ohio State's defense play so poorly against Oregon? Well, because you've got 11 guys who you can make a case for all of them at some point, whether it's this April or next April or the following April, are going to hear their name called on NFL draft night. And maybe two of them actually played like they're future NFL players. Meanwhile, Oregon's NFL players played like NFL players. So, logically speaking, here, what if Ohio State's 11 NFL players on defense play like they're 11 NFL players? Maybe you get a different result. It doesn't mean that it's the difference between losing a game by 1 point and beating a team by 30 points, but it does mean you give yourself the best opportunity to do that. And that starts with Denzel Burke and Davis and Igbenogson in coverage. It starts in the front seven with Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau being, what if they're 75% of what they were against Tennessee? That's pretty darn good. What if Cody Simon and Sonny Styles have continued to develop to the point that they're two of the best linebackers in the country? What if Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs play like they're the best safety tandem in the country? What if Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton play at a high level? A lot of things just did not happen in Ohio State's favor the first time they played against Oregon. But one of the main things was they didn't do what they could control, and that's play well. And you lost by 1 point. So let's start there. All these guys that we made a big deal about, the fact that they came back and put off the NFL, how about you guys play like guys who could be in the NFL this year? And maybe we see a different result on Wednesday.